Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Clockedin with me, your host, Jordan Edwards. I'm thrilled to have you tune in as we dive into the dynamic world of productivity, success, and stories of incredible individuals who've mastered the art of getting things done. Whether you're commuting, hitting the gym, or just relaxing at home, this podcast is the go-to source for inspiration and actionable tips to level up your productivity game. I'm on a mission to unravel the secrets of those who seem to effortlessly manage their time and achieve their goals. So if you're ready to clock in and unlock your full potential, you're in the right place. We've got a lineup of amazing guests, industry experts, and thought leaders who will share their insights and strategies to help us crush your to-do list and make the most out of every moment. Get ready to get inspired, motivated, and equipped with the tools you need to supercharge your productivity. This is Clocked In with Jordan Edwards. Let's dive in. Hey, what's going on, guys? We got a special guest here today. We got Michael Begg. He's CEO of AMZ Advisors, and he's generated over $500 million in sales for different brands that he's worked with. Michael, how are we doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well, Jordan. Thanks for having me on the show today. I'm excited to be here speaking with you.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you on the Clockedin podcast. So, Michael, tell us, where did your journey begin? Where did this all start for you?
Well, it's been a long journey to get to where I am. Where I really started looking and getting into the e-commerce space was when I was working at Sears, which I was doing real estate development there. Sears obviously wasn't doing great at the time, but yeah.
What's that? Yeah, let's just go even before that, just because I think for the audience, because your story is very unique in the regard of how you were able to move countries, relocate, restart your business, because most people are scared to even leave. Did you notice that most people are scared to leave their hometown? Like most people, 95% of people live, I think it's like a 20-mile radius of their hometown. It's absurd.
So I've got a lot of people that do that. A lot of friends that are the same way. I had to get out, but everyone else stayed. I understand that.
So where did you grow up? Where did it all start for you?
Yeah, so I grew up in Connecticut, about an hour outside of New York City, which, growing up there was great. Went to school, played lacrosse. Best pizza in the US is from Connecticut, if you haven't heard that before. So go there and try it. And yeah, I went to school, went to a couple different schools. I played lacrosse in college at Stony Brook. Then from Stony Brook, I transferred to St. Joseph's University in Philly. And continued to play there.
What was that experience like for college lacrosse? Because most people don't realize how intensive being a collegiate athlete is. Like, I played at University of Tampa, but dude, you're juggling. Like, people go to college and they want, social life, party. And then it's like, no, it's a lot more than that.
No, it wasn't party. I mean, the great thing about it is that it made me really good at managing my time because my schedule was so full. My first year especially was extremely challenging. I'd be up at 3 days a week at 6 o'clock in the morning running a 5K. Then after that, I would have class. Then after that class, I would have weightlifting. And then after that, I would have classes again, then lunch. Then practice, then lunch, then classes, then homework and study hall. So we had required study hall as well. And that was pretty much every day for my first year at Stony Brook. It was a crazy, crazy hard schedule, but there are a lot of things that helped a lot with having that routine and having that type of discipline. I mean, as a team, we were really good. We were all on the same page. We spent so much time together. We were so focused on everything. We ended up making it to the conference finals. We were one game away from the NCAA tournament, ended up losing in the final to UMBC. We finished the season number 20 in the country. So it was pretty awesome. I mean, it was a lot of work. Obviously, the more work you put in, the better the results are going to be. And I don't have a better example of that than what we did. Because when I transferred and went to St. Joe's, it was the complete opposite. The lack of discipline, the lack of work effort, the team not buying in, and the results in the field showed. So I think it's extremely important to have those types of schedules, to have that type of discipline, and to put in that type of effort to help you reach the goals that you want to achieve.
Absolutely. And it's so important to realize that you had two different perspectives. Like, you had two different experiences. It's not like
hey, I went to my first school and everyone does school like this. No, there's a reason you guys were winning. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because you had different experiences, you have these different perspectives. So I encourage everyone in the audience listening, it's great to do things the way you're doing it, but it's also to take a day, take a week to go to someone else and learn the way they're doing it, even if they do the same exact thing as you, because they probably have different ways of doing it, but you don't even realize what the special, unique sauce is because
Yeah.
you just do it in your day to day.
Yeah. I mean, you got to get out of your routine. When you're doing the same thing all the time, you're not growing, you're not learning, you're not changing, you're not finding better ways, like you said. So I think that is important. I was obviously good at lacrosse in high school. I became much better at it in college, but the attitudes and the routines and the discipline and the mental focus I had from high school was not the same that I had in college. Like, it obviously changed, it improved, it became drastically different, and I became drastically different as a player. And I wouldn't have had that if I had gone to a school, at my second school to begin with, that was less competitive, people were less driven, the coach wasn't, as great. And I think it does make a big difference when you have coaches in your lives, whether it is a business coach or a life coach, whatever it may be, to really help push you or change your perspective on how you do things or look at things.
100%. And it also helps you build what you're trying to, you know what I mean? Because they're seeing stuff you're not seeing.
Sure.
And it's also really cool because you had a really cool dynamic of a winning team. So you know what creating a winning team looks like. You know what the culture and those values are. And I just know there's so many people that are working right now who are like, I don't like my job. Like, this isn't cool. I don't feel like I'm on a winning team. So what were some of those intangibles that you felt lacrosse had? And then we'll dive into your business later on in the podcast, and we'll talk about what some of those values that you kind of carried forward with you. But what are some of the ones that lacrosse had that were really made the difference?
I think there's a couple of things that stick out to me. Like I mentioned, time management. That was lacrosse in college. Obviously, dealing with the schedule I had took a lot of effort, took a lot of discipline to be able to wake up every day like that. But the motivation of more running and more punishment also helped you stay on time. So that was a good benefit. But I do remember one specific moment in that first year, and one of my teammates, his name's Kevin Crowley. He was a phenomenal player. He won the player of the year his senior year for the entire, for Division I. And I've never seen someone who was more disciplined or put in more work than Kevin. And I remember, I think it was, I don't know, like a cold November day. We were out there running on the field and we were doing sprints after we had already done sprints and practice and everything else. And I was tired. I was not putting in the effort. And I remember I was running next to Kevin, and I remember Kev turning to me and go, "Hey, Beggs, this is where we put in the effort. This is where you get faster. This is where," and I was like, "Shit, dude, like, you're right, man." That's the type of the mentality and focus that you need to have when you're doing those types of things. I mean, it might seem like, oh, this is just another lap I'm doing, or this is just another, sprint crossing the field. But at the end of the day, it's all contributing to a bigger goal that you might not see right now. And I think having that focus or that understanding of how everything you're doing is contributing to where you're trying to go as a person, whether it be health-wise, physically, or in business or education, whatever it may be, it's important to have that focus or that understanding of how this fits into the bigger picture. And I do this with my clients. So it's just interesting that, like, now that same perspective I use in other areas of my life.
Yeah, which is so amazing because at Edwards Consulting, it's like you were saying, I see it as 5 pillars. So it's mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships. And everyone's like, oh, like me going to see my rabbi, how's that going to help your business? Dude, yeah. How is you going to the gym going to help your business? How is you and you start putting these all together because it creates a holistic human being, because we're not just it's funny, like most people do what you do, where you come on the podcast and you're like, I'm this business guy, but like in truth, we're all humans, and that's cool. And like, you're a unique human in your own way, and you make it fun. And like, so take us to where we are. So you're in college, then what ends up happening? And plus, I want to note, like, I grew up in the Northeast too.
Yeah.
You were still like in the Northeast. You were still like on the path, like a normal New Yorker path.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening?
I mean, talking about I was still in the Northeast. Where I lived in Connecticut, I could literally look out across Long Island Sound and see the hospital for my university. That's how close it was. So I didn't go really far. It was just that there was a really good school there. Lacrosse wise, at least, we were really competitive. But anyway, from there, after school, I kind of wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, I had an idea, but I didn't know how to get there. And I think there's a lot that I could probably take out of this as well. But I originally was just looking for a job. Like, how do I get started? So the first thing, I applied for months without getting a job. And I was like, what's going on here? So this was 2012. Like, the job market wasn't great from the financial crisis, but it had been improving, but I was still having trouble getting into the field I wanted to. I wanted to do investment banking, like, typical Northeast lacrosse guy. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And I was trying to break into it and I was struggling and I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't get the offers. I couldn't get the connections. So I started looking at other options. I worked at a law firm for a while, started looking at the legal side. And then I had an opportunity to go work for Deloitte. And it was a big, well-known company at the time. I was like, all right, maybe I can leverage this in some way in the future. So ended up there. And it's tough because Deloitte obviously has a really big brand awareness. And it's like a really well-known name. And a lot of people are impressed by that. But in general, like, I hated working there. It was absolutely terrible. It was so process oriented and like you had to do certain things at certain times and like this had to be done and that, like that type of structure is like something I don't thrive in. I think that's kind of why I became an entrepreneur to begin with, but I don't know if it was my perspective from like my background or whatever, but I'm really good at seeing like the bigger picture, like I said, and then trying to figure out how something fits within it or how something works within it. And I would be in this job at Deloitte and I'd be like, all right, well, like, here's the bigger picture. Like, this doesn't make sense what we're doing, or like, this is like not efficient, or like we're running some tech stack from like 10 years ago. Like, let's get something new in here. And, just slow corporate nonsense. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get out of here, find something I really want to do. So,
well, because that's what ends up happening in these large organizations. It's hard to move things through the system. Everything needs an approval, and it can be very difficult, especially if you feel that you're an ambitious person who wants to make a change instead of. And I talk to people a lot about this, where it's a child as well. Like, kids here know constantly, and like, to be honest, as an early graduate going into the workforce, you're kind of like a little kid and you're like, dude, this is a problem. Like, this is a problem. This is it. Like, this doesn't make sense. And everyone wants to tell you, no. But there's sometimes, and there's a good amount of time where if you keep pushing, you're actually right. Like both sides can be correct. And it's realizing, and it's going and pursuing that vision. So you're struggling in this corporate job. You realize it's not for you. What do you think? What's the path for you, man? What do you think?
So what I did was I had to turn back to first figuring out what I wanted to do. And I think one of the things that actually helped me a lot there was figuring out what I wanted to do. And it was actually Simon Sinek and Start With Why. I just was listening to it one day and I started thinking about it. And I was like, this makes a ton of sense. Like, he's talking about framing, in his actual speech, he's talking about how a company or I think it's a company or a product frames itself. I think he talks about Apple in the original TED Talk. And I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what, this makes sense for a company, but this also applies in like our day-to-day lives as well. If we don't have alignment between why we're doing things, the things that we're trying to do are not going to make sense, or we're not going to find the fulfillment because there's no alignment. And from there, I started thinking about it more, what was really interesting to me. And I realized that real estate was something that I was always really interested in, and not just selling homes, but like actual commercial real estate, big projects, construction. Like, I had always found that extremely interesting. The fact that you could build something that would last for years, it would be almost like it's a monument in a way of the work that you put in. And I was like, all right, well, how do I get there? What can I do to get there? And again, going through the start with why, how, what.
I love that because
I think that's the way I approach everything, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit. But I think it made me realize that I need more education. I was like, I don't want to go back to school. I have to. So I enrolled in a program at NYU to start learning. So I had more of a background in what I wanted to do, and then I could use that to go out and actually, start looking for jobs.
100%. And it's funny. I ask people all the time with the coaching, and I say, like, Michael, what do you want to do? What do you want to see for your life in a year? And they're like, I don't know, man, maybe a promotion. Like, that'd be cool. Like, yeah. and it's the thing is that if we don't live with design, or we don't live with what we are looking to create in the world, because in reality, our brain can be 10 years, 20 years, 50 years ahead of us. And it's just a matter of our reality becoming that but it takes time and effort. And for you to have the awareness, especially when you're going through something that you don't enjoy, instead of being like, screw this, I'm quitting. Like, it's like, no, I just need to figure out a logical next step. What is it that I'm looking to do? What is it that I like to do? And that's one of the tips I tell all the people I talk with is, what are the 10 things you like to do? And please don't tell me it's drink, hang out with my friends. Like what do you actually like to do? You know what I mean? Because if you figure out those things, like whether it's skateboarding or roller hockey or anything, it'll give you a direction and at least you'll learn a little bit more, and you can go down those intrigue paths like Michael did here, where he's like, I'm interested in real estate. I want to learn more. I'm going to go to school to learn a little bit more. And that's going to be what I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about making continual progress, I think. And I think that's another really important aspect that I focus on every day in my life is like, how can I be, 1% better is the saying, but like, how can I get a little bit better every day so that the changes I'm making are compounding over time and I'm getting more results out of my time. And yeah.
Well, what do you mean by compounding? Like, I know what you mean, but just for the audience to get a better understanding of like what that means. What do you mean by compounding?
Yeah. So I forgot the actual math on this, but
the 2 pennies?
No, it's the 1% every day for 365 years. I think it's like, well, anyway, I'll explain it. The idea of trying to get 1% better every day means that like math wise, you're actually getting 1% to the 1 for each day that you're going through. So by the end of the year, you're 1% in 365 versus just improving 1% over the year instead of trying to do it daily or whatever time period. If you do it 1% better every day of the year, you get 37% better, I think, than you would have been just doing 1% performance.
I know what you're talking. Here, wait 1 sec. Let me get it. 1%. Yeah, I know what you're talking. Yes, it's actually 3,800% better every year. So it's 37% better, but like you're 37% better. But it's in reality each percent is equivalent to 37% because of the compounding effects of getting better each and every day. And that could be physically getting better, mental health getting better, you learning more information, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. And you just apply it in different ways in your life. So that's just the way that I apply it in my business. It's the way I have the outlook on doing things in general. But anyway, getting back to the story a little bit, education was just one piece of getting better, and it required studying, it required work. It was so much easier for me to learn because it was something I was interested in. And all of that helped me gain a lot more skills than I had before when I started to look for a job.
Absolutely. So now you're looking for a job, you come across Sears. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I also was applying at a lot of different jobs. I had a lot of different interviews, and I think this is another way that the start with why comes in extremely important. It's like, how do you differentiate yourself in interviews? And because or in the application process, because there's so many candidates out there. And 2 different things I did was, one, I networked at every company that I wanted to go work for, whether they were decision makers or not. And I think I probably got, 10 or 15 interviews just from doing that. networking and then having the reason why to actually like back it up. And then while you're in the interviews is another great reason, another great way to use the start with why system is when you have a compelling story of why you're doing something or why you want this job, or it has alignment in what this job or what this role will be doing. That's a super compelling thing to tell a recruiter or the hiring manager or whoever it is when you actually have a good story there. So I got a few offers out of it from networking, using the start with why method, and then using it within interviews. The Sears job in particular, like I applied through the Sears website. It was in Connecticut, the position, which I thought was weird because Sears headquarters is in Illinois, or was in Illinois. And there were only a few people working for Sears in Connecticut. So it was easy. I just reached out to them on LinkedIn and I just connected with them. I explained like, hey, like I saw this position. I was super interested in it. Like I'm trying to do this and this is what I want to do with my career and like why I'm interested in it and the whole spiel. And I ended up getting the interview there. I went in for the interview at Sears. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's super important for anyone looking to do anything in general. Like if you want to meet someone, if you want to do anything, you go about that informational interview approach, which is very like non-confrontational. It's very like, dude, I'm just here to learn. Yeah. And when you do that, people look at you completely different. They literally go, I want to put my hand down and help you out because you're being so nice. Instead of just being a piece of paper on the line, on the Excel sheet that says, okay, we have 67 applicants now. Mike is one of the 67. No, it Mike reached out to everyone. Then everyone knows him and they're like, okay, I want to meet Mike. Like, what's good with Mike?
Yeah. And it makes you really stand out from the crowd. So like from a job search perspective, I highly recommend that. Going back to the whole interview process at Sears, they brought me into this like little office in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I think there were three other people there in total. They brought me into the conference room. It was like a Regus, like shared office space. And they were talking about a Sears store. And they were like, okay, we need to do this with a Sears store. How would you split up the Sears store to maximize the rentable footage and blah, 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 and make it accessible so they have all the loading and everything? And at that point, it was awesome. It was just a puzzle. And I was like, oh, like I can do this. So like I literally looked at a big square box and I was like, okay, well, we can do this. The elevator needs to be here, blah, blah, blah. And I think that was like the first time that I was in a job, like different than Deloitte, where everything was so regimented, like nothing outside the box, to real estate development, where it's like, oh, you actually have to get creative here, and like, yeah, literally a box in Sears case, but you actually have to be creative here to figure out how to make things work, how to increase the value the most, how to get the most, how to maximize the value of the investment, so on and so forth. And that was super interesting to me. They actually brought in the director after that to, like, literally while I was there were other people interviewing that day. They just sat down and did the interview with one person. They brought in the director after that to talk with me. And I think within like a week and a half, I had the job. So fantastic. It was awesome. Like that was probably one of the best hiring experiences or interview processes I'd ever been through. It was a job I loved. Like the fact that I could think outside of the box to how to do something gave me so much more freedom than anything I ever really expected to have in a job. Because I was literally thinking that like Deloitte, like this is what every corporate job is like. I'm never going to be able to escape this.
Yeah, and that's super important. Again, Michael going through this experience where you're starting to see that this is a trend in Mike's life where it's, hey, the first one might be good, the second one might be good, the third one might be good, but we just need to make sure to figure out what works for us. And getting those other perspectives of working at a Deloitte, and it's not saying all Deloitte jobs are like Mike's or all Sears jobs are like Mike's, but it's figuring out which one works for you, and the more experiences you have, the better.
Exactly. And I mean, that's the important thing, is figuring out what you enjoy, what you're going to get into, and what you're going to like. Sears was an awesome job. Like I ended up working on spinning off a real estate investment trust. So like I said, I wanted to be an investment banker. I kind of got into doing some investment banking. But beyond that, I found that I really liked the real estate development side. And this was another opportunity, which is super interesting. We spun off the Sears REIT. It was all in process. We were kind of deciding who was going to go with the REIT, who was going to stay with Sears and whatnot. And the entire development team was going with the REIT. There was 2 people left on the development team, and Sears was downsizing because they couldn't hire people. And I just went to the president of real estate, and I was just like, hey, like, I want to work in real estate development. Put me with Max and Scott, and I'll do all the work with them. He was like, okay. So from there, I literally went from, within the first year of working in real estate, I got a job, spun off a REIT, and I was managing real estate development projects by year 2, like year 1.5, actually. I was like, all right, this is sick. Like, this is awesome. And it's just because there was an opportunity that presented itself. If I never said anything, I never would have had that opportunity. No one would have promoted me into it. But because it was something I was interested in, I saw there was a need for something. I just proposed it. And the president was like, that's a good idea. And that's kind of how it went from there.
And that's important, because then when there's chaos going on and there's so much stress happening and it can be a little scary, most people are like, is my job safe? Not, hey, I'm ready to jump. Like, give me this job. Like, I need more work. Like, I want to do this. And I think that's such an empowering moment, because that's a make or break moment. Like, to go, put it on me, put the stress on me. I'm ready to go. And that's awesome.
Exactly. And it was fun. It was stressful, but it was fun. I mean, I think I worked on some pretty big projects. They didn't, unfortunately, break ground on them, but like $200 million projects. I was selling $10 million properties, like things that someone, I think I was like 24 or 25 at the time, things that some 24 or 25-year-old probably wouldn't be doing at any other company. But because I kind of took a risk at Sears by going there, because the company was kind of failing, I took advantage of an opportunity. I was doing things that were probably well above my pay grade. But it was teaching me so much more. It was giving me so much more confidence, and it really helped me grow.
Absolutely, because you wanted the experience at the time. And what was the big finding that you found with it all?
With like, kind of taking opportunities that come your way.
No, in regard to like that took on to the next part of your career that really led with everything with Bezos.
I think the biggest thing that I learned, I learned a lot about confidence. I learned how to do things myself. I learned how to be more professional, obviously, because I was dealing with people that were well older than I was, and I had to fit in the crowd. But I think one of the biggest things that made me kind of go the entrepreneurial route, because I never was an entrepreneur before this, was watching the company actually fail. So one of the other things I was doing in my job was the store closures. So I would literally have to go to stores. I would have to look at, what the store looked like, whether we could redevelop it or not. And, it was difficult. You're walking around a store, you're seeing the other employees at the store, and you're like, well, you're probably losing your job in, 4 to 5 months. And it was tough. It was not fun to do that, but it made me realize that the decisions of the leadership of the company put the company in this position. And at that point, it was like, do I trust other people to make decisions that are going to affect my life? Or do I trust myself to make better decisions for me that are going to affect my life? And I think that is kind of where I had the big breakthrough, where I was like, I need to do something for myself, because there's no such thing as a secure job. Someone at the top can make it a decision that can kill the entire company. And, it was a slow death in Sears' case, but like, it's the same point. It's like, everybody else was leaving, people were getting fired. I was like, is my job really secure? Like, are these people really making decisions that are going to give me confidence that I'm going to have a role in the future? And I was like, nah. I was like, I need to do something for myself. And from there, I started getting into e-commerce. I learned how to import products from China, how to brand them, how to put them on Amazon, sell products. One of the products we were selling were art supplies brands. We were competing with Crayola. We realized that from our sales, we were beating Crayola in certain product categories. And it was like, well, these big companies don't know what they're doing. And that's kind of how the idea for AMZ Advisors came around. It was like, all right, let's start an agency to help these big companies. I was seeing another opportunity, and we just kind of dove in there. There was like 3 or 4 other agencies at the time that were well known. And we were like, well, I think we can, carve out a little niche in the e-commerce space and build something there. And that's exactly what we did.
That's fascinating, because it's funny, as people go and tell their stories, it's always like, of course, like why would he not do that? Like, because as people tell their stories, it always makes steps. It always makes sense when you're looking backwards. You're like, of course you would do that. But going forwards, you're like, I hope the dots will connect. It's Steve Jobs' quote when he did the Stanford commencement, and he just talks about that, where you just pray that dots will connect. And it's funny because I hear that same thing where you're talking about is we're all at a job and we're like, oh, very safe, very secure, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, okay, but I could also have 10 clients. Am I going to get fired from all 10 at the same time? Probably lower, probably a lower chance. Yeah. let alone maybe I get 12 clients and then I give myself a bonus. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like you really create your own life. And that's the cool thing about entrepreneurship. And I think that's the exciting thing. But you also took it a step further. What was the interesting thing you did? Because this is honestly what fascinates me the most, just because I'm a traveler at heart and I'm always like, should I be in this place? Is this the right place for me? Should I be elsewhere? And yeah.
So when we were starting, I have two partners. When I say we were starting the agency. We had money saved. We were making money on the sales side from our brand. And we kind of were like, all right, how do we make this money last as long as possible? So what we did was move to Playa del Carmen, Mexico. We were like, all right, well, we can go to Mexico. We can live at the beach, nice weather. It's, way better than winters in Connecticut. And we would have the most time with the lower cost of living to give the business room to breathe and get going. Within 3 months, we were making, we weren't making crazy money. We were making like $4,000 or $5,000 each a month. And we were like, all right, like we have some traction here. And then from there, it just kept scaling. Within the first year of being in Mexico, the three of us were each making $15,000 a month. And we were like, all right, like this is awesome. Like we did it. From there, I ended up wanting to travel more. I came to Guadalajara, Mexico, which is where I actually live now and where I'm recording from. And I've been here ever since. And being here has helped the business grow in a lot of other ways because it's opened us up to hiring employees down here, which is something we probably would not have done if we were in the US. It's an interesting story that a lot of our clients love. They're like, all right, this is pretty crazy how you ended up moving to Mexico and like you're doing such a good job on this. And yeah, I don't think there's anything I would do differently or, there's definitely nothing I regret. I would say that, but living in a new country is also interesting because it gives you a totally different perspective on the quality of life, on, decisions you make. And I think that's also important to get out of where you're from, or again, we talked about it earlier, getting a new perspective on things. I think that makes a big difference.
100%. And that's so interesting is that it's, hey, like initially we just wanted more runway. Like we just wanted more runway. And you go to these places and then you start to see the beach and you start to see that a beer is now $1 instead of $7. You're like, oh my God, this place is great.
Yeah, this is not bad.
Cool. And the thing is that I'm not knocking the US or knocking Mexico or knocking anywhere. I just think it's important to realize what is out there because there are so many people that are struggling just to get by in the United States as a whole, just because of the inflation and everything going on, that it's like, have you considered this idea of maybe moving to a foreign country, maybe moving to a different area? And the coolest thing is now, hey, we can do it for a month. We can do it for 3 months. Exactly. We can do it like, there's not, hey, I got to do a year lease. I got to do it. No, it's, we'll rent a house for a couple months. We'll see if we like it. If we don't like it, we come back. Cool. Done.
Or go somewhere else. Yeah. Like there's so many different opportunities. And I think COVID accelerated a lot of that for people, or at least made people realize 100%. That this was a possibility. But it's getting to the point now where it's like, well, if you don't give it a shot or like don't give it a try, you have no idea like how different your life could be, or like how much you might change your perspective on the world or how to work or work-life balance. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that shifts when you move outside, because the US work-life balance like isn't great. Where I'm from, again, it's like New York metro area. Everyone's in a rush. Everyone's hustling. It's brutal. I have plenty of friends that did go the investment banking route and worked, 80-hour weeks. And like looking back, I don't know how they did it. I would have gone nuts. Like it's nice having, the ability to work, go outside, enjoy the nice weather, and just not have to deal with that stressful job.
Well, that's the other thing, is that there's many ways to live your life, and it's which one works for you. Because I mean, like you said, New York, it's hustle and bustle. It's 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's nonstop, and is that the only way to make money? No, there's the internet. There's a lot of different ways now. And so for you, how do you focus on, and this is something I've always been interested in, is like building an international workforce? Because in reality, you guys are from America. You guys don't, like, most people will end up hiring American. Like, there's a ton of people doing outsource now. And how do you think about that? Like, even I had a videographer, like someone who would clip up my videos, and he's from the Philippines. And like, dude, you have to outsource these activities, or it becomes too much of a strain on yourself. So how did you think about this?
I think when we went down the hiring route, like, we always knew that we needed some people to help with certain aspects. I mean, that first year, 2 years, we pretty much did it ourselves. There were 3 of us, so it was a lot more manageable. Then we started hiring virtual assistants. A good friend of ours, Nate Hirsch, had a company called Free Up. We kind of started working with him early in that company's growth stage. They were helping you find Filipinos that were great workers, knew everything about e-commerce, Amazon. So we went that route to a certain point, but it got to a point where it wasn't possible to keep using freelancers. It's like, we needed full-time people. We needed people that were committed and dedicated to working on our hours, that were able to get stuff done for our clients. And that's where we started making the change on that.
How did you know when that time is? Because I was talking with, I run a group, and I was talking to some of them about it. And one of the guys is like, dude, he does a lawn care business. And he was saying how in his lawn care business, he's like, yeah, originally I was like looking for clients. Now I have a ton of clients. Now people just keep coming up to me saying they want me to do more work. And I'm like, well, you have entered a new problem. You have to hire someone to help you. So what was the reason? What was kind of that realization, that wake up moment for you that, hey, we got to bring people in house?
Yeah, it was definitely that. It was a similar feeling. I mean, it was kind of like a plateau. It was like, we've gotten to this point. I don't know if I can take more phone calls. I don't know if I can manage these advertising campaigns. Like, I think the quality of the work, at least on the deliverable side, was starting to suffer because I was trying to do so much, or we were all trying to do so much. And we had to look at it differently. We were like, all right, if we keep going this route, like, we're going to lose all these clients. They're not going to stick around. So that was really the breakthrough moment for us. We're like, we need to hire, because if we don't have someone full-time, someone that can keep things up to the quality that they need to be, client experience is going to suffer. Clients are going to leave. It could lead to bad reviews. And it's going to have a negative, feedback loop for the business overall. So you kind of get to a point where it's like, and I think a lot of people get there, is like, do I just want a lifestyle business? Do I want to spend my time or sell my time to make some money from clients? Or do I actually want to grow something and try to build something? It's a whole different level of responsibility. And we were like, well, I mean, let's try growing it. Let's see what we can do. E-commerce is growing. The market's only growing. Amazon's getting bigger every year. More and more brands are focused on it. We're like, we have a pretty good opportunity here. Let's see what we can do. And I think it was the idea of trying to challenge ourselves to see that we could pull it off is one of the things that really helped motivate us to keep going with it and start hiring more and more and more, to the point where we have 50 employees now.
Which is incredible. That's an amazing accomplishment. And I think it comes from the questions we asked ourselves of, if we were to do this and I wasn't to work at all, how would I do this? You know what I mean? These tough questions and I see you smiling, because I know you and your co-founders probably have these conversations of, how can we remove ourselves completely? And you start to think about that. And then you sit there and you go, okay, well, I do this, outreach, inbound, speaking on the phone, doing the campaigns. Okay, we could hire a campaign guy. We could hire this guy. And there's just different ways of thinking about this and organizing it, so that you're not like, wow, because when you're a solo entrepreneur or a small team, you don't realize, but each person does 25 different jobs, which isn't healthy. Like it's not the best way to operate.
And I think you kind of, there's different levels to it. And you just kind of nailed it on the head. Is like that first level is like, all right, how do I hire people that report to me that are going to do the work I don't want to do? And then the next level is how do I hire the managers to manage the people that are reporting to me to make sure the work is being done? And then beyond there, it's like, how do I hire the directors that are going to be responsible for managing all of this and making sure that, we have a process, it's in place. And even up until, 15, 16 months ago, that director level was still in its infancy, and it was difficult for us to make the changes on it that we needed to. I mean, we were still running into issues with it. It's all a growing process. It's all learning and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And finally, like we've made the traction on it where we have managers in place, we have the directors in place. Now we focus on, sales, marketing, partnerships, things that are actually going to grow the business. And we have people that we can count on to actually make sure that the clients are happy, that the product's being delivered, and that they're getting the right results. So it's levels. It takes time. You can grow fast if you have a great product, but if you don't have the people to back you up on it, it's going to lead to churn. It's going to lead to client issues, unhappy clients, people leaving, stressed out employees. So it's a balance between figuring out how do I position my product to sell it as much as possible, and how do I bring in the people to help me grow the actual operations of the business and make sure that I can continue to do this over time.
Absolutely. And one of the last things I want to ask is regarding clients. How do you think about choosing clients? Because you're probably at the point now where it's like everyone's been there where they're like, this is a tough client. Like, I don't know if this is a guy I want to work with or a girl, just because of the way they operate. And it's like, is this a good partnership here? Because it's got to be on both sides. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. And it is different for every business, but we realize that one of the things that causes us more headaches than more benefits is working with founder-led companies versus employee-led companies. So the really only difference is the number of employees or the people responsible that you're working directly with and what the realistic expectations are. Founders are pretty unrealistic. They want maximum growth at the lowest cost possible. And I mean, if you have your own business, like you kind of understand that. Like you don't want to pay for something that you're not going to get the maximum return from. But as a client, for us, they're very difficult to work with because e-commerce in general, it requires advertising dollars. It requires spending money to acquire customers. If you don't spend the money, we can't do our jobs. And it was a constant back and forth and fighting, arguing with them. So we started moving more towards working with larger brands that are managed by, our point of contact might be the director of marketing or the director of sales or someone that is not the founder, understands what it takes to grow, and then lets us do our thing to actually get the results. So for us, that's how we kind of decide like who we want to work with, who we don't want to work with.
Yeah, but I think that comes back to what we were talking about earlier with yourselves taking on 25 jobs as the founder. Like it's tough when you're the director of marketing, but you're also the accounting CFO of the company, which is the founder in most cases. So when you're trying to make the decision on both of those, you're like, who are these guys? And you start asking questions about the other people. And you totally have to understand everyone's perspective. But I think that awareness and that little tip of realizing the perspective of the person you're working with, because once you understand them, you understand what you're going to get. And that's exciting and that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't remember exactly when we thought about this, but it's kind of like Pareto's law. 80% of your complaints are going to come from 20% of your clients. Same thing, like 20%, 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your clients and vice versa. But it's true. We had clients that were just causing us headaches nonstop. It was just like, why are we doing this? So we just fired them and brought in the good clients that we actually enjoyed working with and then we were able to get results for. So it makes things so much better once you can kind of realize that, understand who you want to work with, who you want to help, who's ideal and who's not. Because once you know that, it's easier to have a clear direction of where you need to go.
Absolutely. With Mike, this is winding down, but I would be remiss if we didn't bring up the coolest little fun fact about yourself. that you told me at the beginning, where your lacrosse career has not ended. It's still going on. Tell me about this, because this was bizarre. He doesn't, just for the audience, he doesn't share this. He doesn't tell anyone this. I had to do some deep dive in research, figure out that he played lacrosse, and then he telling me about it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I usually don't bring it up that frequently, but when I'm talking to another lacrosse guy, it's pretty easy. So I have dual citizenship. Born in the US, but my family's from Portugal. So I have Portuguese citizenship. I played for the Portuguese national lacrosse team. Last year we were at the World Qualifiers. We did not make the World Games, which actually happened in June this year. So it was a little disappointing. But as a team, we keep growing, keep getting better. We just won a tournament in Lisbon a month ago, and we're looking forward to the next World Games. We actually have another indoor tournament coming up in the end of September. So it's fun. I mean, I love playing. I still play. I love getting out there. I think as a side note, like one of the things that I got into after college was like CrossFit and like really weight training and really pushing myself and getting more physical and like understanding how to use my body more. And now that I understand all those things and I look back, I'm like, damn, if I knew this in college, like I would have been so much better. But now like I get to actually apply it and like I really see the differences, and it's just so interesting. We brought it up like way earlier, changing your perspective and getting new insights on how things work. I had no idea that weightlifting or this type of weightlifting could have such a big impact, like Olympic lifting, all those things, on the way that you actually control your body, how you use it, how you hit people. And now that I know all of that, I'm like, damn, I wish I had more perspective on it. So it's always good to learn, no matter what stage of your life you're in. It's always good to learn from people that have been there before, experts, and just get different ideas on what you can improve on.
Absolutely. It sounds like you might have a lacrosse coaching career in the future.
I don't know about that right now. I'm trying to get more involved with the actual federation and the management of it. To start us, hitting some of our fundraising goals and really trying to grow the sport within Portugal a lot more. But I'm not a great coach, I will say. I coach little kids when I was younger. I get very frustrated with people not listening to me. So I don't know that I would be the best coach in the world, but.
Absolutely. So how do you think about juggling both? Because it's interesting, because a lot of people want this, I'm all in and I do nothing else. And I'm the complete opposite. I think it's good to have multiple perspectives and multiple different ideas and businesses and handle these different things. So how do you think about that?
I mean, I do this. I agree with you. I have multiple businesses. We just talked about one of them, but I have a few other ones. And I think the important things to understand are, first, you got to have really good partners. That helps a lot to be able to achieve these things, because when it's all on you, then you're better off just focusing on one thing. Then when you have multiple things going on, you can have the right partners in each business to help you achieve results. And I think the other thing to realize is like, you got to play to your strengths, and those strengths are going to help the business, whatever business, move further along by applying what you do the best in each business. And like for me, sales and marketing is what I do the best. So when I have a whole sales and marketing system that I use. When I put it into one of the businesses, we start getting more leads, it starts growing, we start getting more brand recognition, like everything takes off from there. So I use my skill set to help my different projects take off. And, when I look at the Portugal Lacrosse Federation, I don't see it as any different. It's not a business I own, but it still needs the marketing, it needs the fundraising, it needs to reach people, to let them know that we exist, to be able to grow it over time. So those are the two things: great partners and playing to your strengths, knowing what you do best.
Absolutely. I love that. Mike, you've been incredible. Where can people find you?
The two best ways to reach me are on LinkedIn or my email directly. My email is mike@amzadvisors.com. And if anyone wants to speak, you can always send me a message. I'm always glad to talk and see if there's any other way I can help. So
awesome.
Thank you for reaching the end of the podcast. For that, we'll give you a complimentary coaching session in the link below with Edwards Consulting. Hope to see you there and have a great day and keep clocking in.